She was late. Again. Late for her flight. Late for her meeting. Late for the life she believed she deserved. But fate was always on time. The rain beat down on Lagos Island. She sprinted past traffic with her heels clicking like a ticking bomb. Her name was Veronica Dale. 29. Sharp-tongued. Untouchable. But about to be humbled by a man she almost ignored. A worn Toyota idled by the curb. A man leaned on the hood. Faded hoodie. Quiet eyes. No taxi sign. No uniform. She approached without thinking. "Are you free?" "Airport." "Fast." He simply nodded. "Yes. Please, get in." And just like that, destiny slipped behind the wheel. She didn't look at him. Didn't thank him. She buried her face in her phone, shuffling through presentations. He drove without complaint. The roads twisted. The traffic snarled. But he moved like water, fluid, unnoticed. Then he spoke. "You work very hard." She scoffed without looking up. "That's how people like me get ahead. There are no shortcuts." He replied softly, "Sometimes, the best things happen when we slow down." She rolled her eyes. He didn't understand. He couldn't. In her world, slowing down meant losing. But 20 minutes in, she realized something. They weren't heading to the airport. She sat up. Panic in her voice. "Hey, this isn't the way. Are you trying to rob me?" He didn't speed up. He didn't defend himself. "The car's overheating. I'm helping us both." She hadn't noticed. But he had. Always had. They pulled into a mechanic shop. The staff greeted him respectfully. Too respectfully. "Sir, the radiator is fine. Just a refill," the mechanic said. She blinked. "Sir." That wasn't how they talked to drivers. She finally looked at him. Not through him. At him. He made calls in perfect Hausa. Then French. Then English. His tone was calm. Controlled. And then he handed her a business card. She read it twice. Micah Anyanwu. Founder, Envirotech Energy Group. A company recently acquired for $48 million. The man she thought was her driver was the owner of an empire. "Why were you driving today?" she whispered. He smiled. "To remember what the ground feels like. And sometimes, to find people who've forgotten it." She didn't board that flight. Instead, they got coffee. Then dinner. Then hours of walking and talking in places she'd never noticed. The woman who barked at drivers was now listening to the man who once silently drove her. He wasn't behind the wheel anymore. He was beside her. And eventually, he was the one she said yes to. Their engagement party was grand. Lights. Laughter. Applause. And then, a ghost walked in. Her ex-boss. The man who fired her 3 days before she met Micah. "Look who landed herself a golden parachute," he said with mockery. "Did he pick you up too?" Micah stepped forward, voice low and firm. "I did. And now I pick her every day." The crowd erupted. Justice served. But that night, Micah received a letter. 5 words. Typed in bold. "You owe me, traitor. K." Veronica found him staring at it. "Who is it?" she asked. He looked away. "A ghost. One that's late to the party. But ghosts don't arrive late. They arrive when the truth is ready." 10 years ago, Micah wasn't a founder. He was a desperate coder. Hungry. Broke. Then came Carlu, a smooth-talking investor who offered funding. But the deal was dirty. Together, they built software to track oil tankers. Legal on paper. Criminal in execution. When Micah found out, he tried to stop it. Carlu disappeared. Micah was left behind to take the fall. 3 months in prison. 2 years in hiding. And a lifetime of silence. Until now. Veronica wasn't the same woman anymore. She didn't dismiss people. She investigated them. Quietly, she dug. And what she found chilled her. Offshore accounts, a shell company in Micah's name he never opened. Someone was framing him again. "It's starting all over," she whispered. Micah nodded. "I've been waiting for it." Then the call came. Veronica answered. A voice slithered through the speaker. "Tell Micah to meet me, or I make sure the world sees what he really is." It was Kalu. Still smooth. Still poisonous. Still hunting. "Love makes you loud," he said. "Let's see if it makes you smart." They laid a trap. Micah would meet Kalu at a gala. Veronica would bait Kalu's team with a decoy laptop. Meanwhile, journalists and private investigators moved in silence. If one wire failed, everything could collapse. The night arrived. The ballroom sparkled. Micah stood calm, dignified. Then Kalu entered. Same smile. Same swagger. Same venom. "You finally crawled out," he said. "You finally got loud," Micah replied. "Everything you built," Kalu said, "will belong to me." Again. But what Kalu didn't know was that the champagne glasses had biometric tags. Half the staff were undercover. That Micah's suit was wired with recorders. The moment Kalu raised his glass to toast, sirens screamed. Security closed in. Veronica stepped into the light, holding evidence. "Smile for the cameras," she said coldly. Kalu lunged. Micah blocked him. "You taught me how to survive," Micah said. "Now let me teach you how justice feels." Kalu was arrested. Multiple charges. Cyber fraud. Blackmail. Corporate theft. Micah's name was cleared. His company was restored. And the past, finally buried. Or so they thought. That night, Micah found a final note tucked in his pocket. "One snake is gone. But the pit is full. K." And it was true. Because Kalu didn't work alone. He had a network. A dark one. And someone had already infiltrated their world. Veronica opened her laptop. A red dot blinked. Someone was accessing her files from inside Micah's company. She froze. Micah entered the room. "It's not over, is it?" she asked. He said nothing. Just stared at the screen. Outside their home, a hooded figure watched from across the street. On his phone, a picture of Veronica. Below it, a label, Phase 2. The war wasn't over. It had just changed form. Because the man she thought was her future was still being hunted by his past. Justice was served, but peace was a lie. Because while the cameras flashed and the headlines cleared Micah's name, the shadows never left. Veronica couldn't sleep. Not after the blinking red dot. Not after the ghost file that opened and closed itself on her laptop. Someone had slipped through their defenses. Someone inside the company was leaking information. And they were watching her. Micah increased security. Double encrypted their servers. Installed firewalls strong enough to hold back a nation-state. But this wasn't a cyber attack. It was a personal one. Someone close. Someone trusted. Someone smiles in their meetings. Then it happened. During a quarterly leadership call, a key file went missing. Their flagship product's blueprint is gone. Sold to a foreign competitor before the patents cleared. It was a direct hit. Clean. Quiet. Devastating. Micah stared at the boardroom in silence. Veronica scanned every face. Their CFO. Their chief legal officer. Their head of security. And then, someone spoke. "We need to consider stepping down, Micah," said Roland Akani, the chief operating officer. His voice was measured. Calm. Too calm. "You've done your best, but maybe it's time for new leadership before investors walk." Micah didn't respond. But Veronica saw it. The flicker. The calculation. The trap. Roland wasn't making a suggestion. He was making a move. 3 nights later, Veronica accessed the internal server logs. She saw what she feared: Roland's digital fingerprint on the back end of the stolen design. Logged in at midnight. Erased by dawn. Covered with a ghost proxy. But not clean enough. She confronted Micah. "It's Roland. He's the one." Micah closed his eyes. "He was my first hire. He was with me when I had nothing." Veronica's voice trembled. "Which makes the betrayal perfect." They hatched a plan. One that required patience, acting, and bait. Micah would play the broken CEO, silent, vulnerable, willing to step aside. Roland would take the spotlight. And the bait. A second prototype planted in the system, brilliant on the surface, but built with deliberate errors only the real engineers would recognize. Days passed. Roland rose like a phoenix. He held investor meetings, spoke to the media, assumed control, and just as they hoped, he stole the prototype, packaged it, sold it offshore. Quiet, efficient, fatal. What he didn't know was that the offshore buyer was a sting operation, funded by Micah, recorded by international IP enforcement, broadcasted directly to the board of directors. The day of the shareholder meeting arrived. Roland walked in wearing a $10,000 suit, confident, cold, ready to remove Micah permanently. But halfway through his prepared remarks, screens lit up. A video began playing. His own voice. His emails. His private offshore calls. The room turned to ice. His jaw locked. Micah stood slowly, calm, unapologetic. You were my brother, Roland. You saw me broken. You helped me build this. And now you tried to bury me beneath it. Roland tried to walk out. Security blocked the door. Veronica stood beside Micah, unshaken. You didn't just betray him, she said. You underestimated me. Within 48 hours, Roland was indicted on corporate espionage charges. He lost his position, his shares, and his legacy. But not before whispering something to Micah during his final walk past him. You think this is over, Roland said. But I was never at the top of the food chain. I was just a pawn, just like you were 10 years ago. That night, Micah found a USB hidden in his office chair. No label. Just a folder inside called The Origin. Inside were documents, old emails, and video footage. And a name. A name Micah hadn't heard in over a decade. A man who had never been arrested. Never been seen. The man above Carlo. The true architect of the criminal network. The one who disappeared with billions during the Niger Delta pipeline scandal. The files were timestamped just days ago, meaning whoever sent them was close. Very close. And then the final video played, a grainy security camera. Veronica. In a restaurant. Laughing. Talking. To someone she didn't know was being followed. Micah's face went pale. Veronica walked in. Micah, what's wrong? He turned the screen. This was yesterday. Someone's tracking you. This man is connected to everything. Veronica stared at the screen. The figure. The eyes. Something about him froze her blood. I've seen him before, she whispered. But not in person. In a photo on your father's wall. The silence between them thickened. Micah's father had died in mysterious circumstances 12 years ago. The case was closed. Or so they thought. What if this isn't about me? Micah whispered. What if this is about him? Veronica's eyes widened. Then it means we're not fighting for your future anymore, we're fighting to expose your past. Outside, across the street, a man in a black coat lowered his binoculars. On his phone screen, an image of Veronica and Micah, time-stamped, live. He spoke into his mic calmly. They found the drive. Phase 3 begins now. Because the man she thought was a taxi driver had only just begun to reveal who he really was. The shadows had grown teeth. The smiles around them had grown quieter. And Micah had stopped sleeping. The files from the mystery USB revealed something neither of them expected, documents linking Micah's late father to the same secret energy ring Carlu had worked for. A company buried deep beneath shell corporations. And one name at the center of it all. Dele Agba. A quiet billionaire. Publicly charitable. Privately untouchable. The man behind Carlu. The man who had funded Roland. The man who had vanished during the Niger Delta probe, cleared for lack of evidence. But now there was evidence. Dozens of signed authorizations. Payments. Wiretaps. Emails. Enough to take down an empire. But Micah couldn't move yet. Because Dele didn't just kill deals. He eliminated people. And 12 years ago, he eliminated Micah's father. The official report said heart failure. But the file Micah now held told another story. Poison. Silent. Painless. Traced back to a bottle of wine sent from a fake admirer. Wine Micah's father drank alone after refusing to sell a tech patent, the same patent Micah rebuilt from scratch 10 years later. The betrayal was generational. And now Micah had the chance to end it. Not with revenge, but with truth. Veronica was scared. Not for herself, but for him. "You don't have to do this alone," she said. Micah shook his head. "I was born alone. But I'm not walking into this war without you." They planned a public reveal. A live forum at the International Ethics Summit in Cape Town. Micah was invited to speak on tech and transparency. Dele Agba would be there. Front row. Smiling. Clapping. Unaware that the stage was about to become his reckoning. The night before the event, Micah received a call. A deep voice. "Calm. Walk away. You show that drive, and the next body won't be a father, it'll be your wife." Micah stared at Veronica sleeping. Peaceful. Unaware. And made his decision. The next morning, the summit hall filled. Reporters. Diplomats. Billionaires. All watched as Micah stepped onto the stage. He took a deep breath. Looked into the crowd. Found Dele's eyes, calm, calculating. And pressed play. The screen lit up. Documents. Audio clips. Videos. Micah narrated every lie they ever told. Every company they ever bled. Every name they tried to erase. The room turned from curious to furious. Dele didn't move. Until the final clip played footage of him, 12 years ago, walking into a private clinic with Micah's father's medical file. The audio file that followed crushed the silence. "If he won't sell, then bury the code with him." Gasps. Phones recording. Chairs shifting. Dele stood, slowly. Then smiled. "This is slander," he said. "Fiction." Micah leaned forward into the MIC. "Then why is your private jet grounded and your passport flagged?" Interpol agents moved in. Dele's face twisted. He lunged for the side exit. But before he could run, he was stopped. By a woman in a navy suit. Calm. Sharp. Confident. "Veronica. You forgot something," she said, handing him the final document. "My wedding invitation. You're not coming." Dele Agba was arrested on charges of conspiracy, corruption, murder, and international racketeering. It made global news. Micah's name became synonymous with justice. The tech community honored his courage. The families of the silenced came forward. But Micah didn't celebrate. Not loudly. Justice for his father wasn't sweet. It was heavy. And earned. And costly. On the day of their wedding, Micah stood beside Veronica in the sunlit chapel. The same woman who once barked at him in a rush now held his hand with unwavering faith. She had seen him broken. Seen him hunted. And still chose him. "You still drive," she whispered, smiling through tears. "Every chance I get," he said. "You never know who fate's picking up next." They exchanged vows. Tears. Rings. A story that began in a taxi ended in a church. But not before one final twist. As they walked out of the chapel, a little girl waited by the exit. Eyes wide. Holding a white envelope. "A man gave me this for you," she said. "He said to tell you, your story isn't finished." Micah opened the envelope. Inside, one line. "I was never the only architect. D." Veronica read it. "You think he means?" Micah nodded. "There's always another level. Another mask. Another puppet master." He looked out across the hills. The world now knew the truth. But the war between darkness and justice would never truly end. Not for people like him. Because the man she thought was a taxi driver had just dismantled a criminal empire. And somewhere, someone else had just watched him do it. But for today, they chose peace. Because tomorrow might need them to rise again. Life lesson, you never know who you're talking to. The man you underestimate may be the one to unravel kings. And sometimes, the quietest riders carry the loudest truths. Never judge by status, wealth, or silence. Because the underdog always has a hidden roar. Subscribe for more stories that remind us, true power doesn't come from titles, it comes from what you're willing to risk to do what's right.